Hello, my name is Michael Nunneley, and welcome to another episode of The Art of Making Comics. Today, I've invited Ted Krayonz here today with us from Supreme Graphics, and he's going to tell us about what printers are going to need from you when you bring them your work with comics. A little bit about what you're going to need to expect from artists. Anyway, Ted, welcome to the show, and let's have it, sir.
Thank you very much, Michael. Well, today I want to go over some of the things that are needed to be able to present the best artwork you can so that your comic books come out well. And we're going to start first with the size of your comic book. Most artists like to draw big and then shrink, but your final size needs to be something that can be used by the printer to allow bleeds and things so that we can cut and we can print on the right size of paper to keep your costs low. Comics can start rising in price when you have things wrong, such as not enough bleed, if you don't have enough size where we're having to expand. And an example of that is we have people sometimes churn in a cover, and the cover doesn't have enough bleed, and so the printer or the pre-press person has to go in and add the bleeds, and that can add extra costs to preparing your comic.
Guilty.
Yeah. So one of the things that we kind of want to do is make sure that we have correct sizes, and no matter what you send. So if your artist decides to draw stuff bigger, which is more comfortable for artists, it's okay if they check to see what it'll shrink down to in size so it doesn't stretch the image. A lot of times we get images that come in and they get stretched. They don't look right, or something is off because the size isn't correct. So it'd be more important if that's something that that you can make the correct size. So I want to go over the actual sizes. And one of those is your finished size of your comic book. When we're done printing and trimming, it is 6.875 inches by 10.375 inches. So in adding bleeds, and to explain what bleeds are, a lot of people don't know what that is. It's where the color goes off the page, so that you don't actually have a white margin or you don't have an edge that doesn't have color. And so with bleeds, you want your comic book to be 7.125 inches by 10.625 inches. Basically, it's adding a 1/4 inch of color so that we have room to trim and print. So those are the size of a comic book. Some of the other things we want to go over with is submitting the artwork. Because of technology today, a lot of people freehand, but they also draw on the computer, and they don't realize that there's a DPI that's needed in order to make that comic book the best quality possible. Okay. Now, the human eye can only see so much, so anything over 300 DPI really isn't needed. There's places out there that'll say give us 600 or 1,000, but we're not going to be able to see it with the human eye anyway. So basically, anything that's designed or turned in needs to be 300 DPI. And at that resolution, you're going to have a crisp, clean look to your comic book. And the second thing is the color. Everything that we see with our eyes, everything on the web is all RGB, 3 color. But in the printing industry, we do 4 colors. So we want to make sure that after you design or draw something that it gets converted to CMYK, because the colors are going to change. And an example of that is I've had people submit really vibrant colors, and then when we turn it to 4 color, the blues change to a darker blue, the pinks become lavender. So it's better if you design in CMYK so that you can see how your colors are going to be. The printer is going to read 4 colors, so it gives us access to billions of colors instead of Millions.
Definitely makes a huge difference. With both the comics I had printed there at Supreme Graphics, there were scenes that we did in there, certain panels that full on they almost went dark because it was already a dark panel.
Yeah.
And it made it so you could barely see anything. We had to go in there and adjust it because it wasn't in the CMYK fashion.
Right, that RGB doesn't need that for detail, but when you go into 4 colors, you want to be able to see all the details.
Yeah.
The rocks, the bullets, the hair, the grass, everything. And in 4 color, we're able to really bring out the enhancements.
Makes a huge difference.
In drawing.
Yeah.
The second thing that's really, really important in what you're submitting is you have to think about it. It's actually being a book. Even though a comic book is more the shape of a magazine or the size of a magazine, it acts like a book. So you want to make sure that text or things that you write or storylines, things you don't want cut off, you want to make sure it's 3/8 inches from the edge. So even though your color can bleed off and some of your pictures can bleed off, you don't want any text or anything to get cut off when we do the trim. So it's better to have a margin of 3/8 that you can mark. So whoever's doing your lettering or your story or the person that's doing the conversation in the comic books wants to make sure that they keep the bubble balloons far enough from the edge so they don't get cut off. Margins are really important because no matter how high quality machinery is and equipment, there's a little bit of creep, and that creep can shift sometimes up to a 1/16 of an inch.
So we need to be watching not just for bleeds around the outside edge of the page, but even margins within the panels.
Within the panels, yes, definitely. You need to be able to make sure that things that are important aren't going to accidentally get cut off in the trimming process.
Good tip.
And one thing that most people don't know about books is the whole book is trimmed at once. So we don't have the ability to adjust the trim or change it if something inside the book is too close to the margins. So we sometimes cut 10, 12 books at once all the way through. So you want to make sure there's enough margin in there that something that's important isn't going to get cut off. And the last thing in submitting comic books is the file format. Now, everybody out there is, especially artists, like to do everything in PNG. And their reason for that is the files are much smaller for sending through the internet and email.
Right.
But the problem with PNGs is they lose a lot of the quality and they lose a lot of the details and they're not high enough resolution. So it's much, much better to do a TIFF file or a PDF, both of them high res. Because TIFF has the most detail of any type of file format. It also maintains colors the most true. But sometimes, artists that draw all over the world are sending things through email and files can get pretty big. So it's usually good to submit 1 page of your comic book per email or to get the FTP site from your printer. And then you can upload all the pages at once. But those are the basics of what are needed for sending to a printer so that you can get the best comic book that you can.
Great. Right on. That's some really good advice. I'll tell you, I wish I had this video to watch before I went to you the first time. Thanks a lot for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
And I'm glad to have had you on. I hope you guys learned something today. Now you know what to get from the artists. I tell my artists specifically that I want it in 300 DPI and in the TIFF format. Because it is just the best resolution to give to the printer, and like he said, that it comes out the best way that way. So thanks again, and live long and prosper, guys. Have a good one.
All right.